All right. Are you tired of having the same conversation over and over with one of your employees? Or is there a conversation out there that you've been avoiding because it's going to be a tough one? We know that happens, and we have a class for you to help with that. Our Tough Conversations class is designed exactly for these situations. We know that having tough conversations is tough. That's why we called it Tough Conversations. And we want to help out. And we have a special offer right now for organizations. If you have a need for tough conversations training in your organizations, you can bring 20 people into this class for the price of 10. And if you book this through the end of the year, that offer is available to you. So drop me an email, Courtney at slingshot25.com, and get your group signed up today.
Welcome to Slingshot 25 Shotcast, a series of bite-sized podcasts that will feel like an espresso shot straight to your brain. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Courtney.
Something that we've been thinking about is this human tendency to kick things down the road. I know. Now you might be wondering, what the heck are we going to say about this? We're kind of wondering that
Nobody's wondering that more than us.
It's true. At least we're on the same page there. We've been thinking about this tendency to kick things down the road because we feel like if there's not a quick fix, if it's complicated, if it's going to take a lot of energy to do something about this, like, can we just keep pushing it out on the strategy? Like, that's a next year thing. That's a when we really get our act together. That's a...
Just as soon as this org change is finished, then we'll figure it out, right? There's always an excuse or something in the way of doing what needs done. So we prioritize the urgent thing of the day over the important work that needs done.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you are struggling with that because you know it's important, and it's frustrating for you too that you don't get to it, or it doesn't get prioritized, or you're waiting. In the meantime, you have leaders that aren't having good conversations. You have employees that are looking at other jobs, and just a level of frustration because you haven't done the important work to help them. Yeah,
and the important work that we're talking about, that kind of you're alluding to right now, Courtney, is the important work of continuing to develop the skills of your leaders.
Yeah.
Because it's a complex field. I mean, you all know there's something like 75,000 leadership books on Amazon right now as we speak, probably actually more than that. I've been saying 75,000 for 20 years, so it's probably something like 150,000 by now. So it's complex. There's a lot to say about it. And so it's easy to say, we're good enough. That's just, something that we'll throw into strategy later when we can free up some money for it, or whatever it might be, whatever story you're telling yourself. And we're here to give you maybe a little different way to think about that.
Yeah. So what do we think about that?
Well, we think that you need to start thinking more critically about the story you're telling yourself there. And one of the things that came up for me, Courtney, when I was thinking about this is this model, because I use a lot of mental models to think about things and find my way through things, is the model of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect essentially says that when we don't really want to take on a larger body of learning, that we'll just settle for this idea that we know enough already. I'm good. I'm good. Like, you suspicion that there's a lot more out there, that maybe we should be kind of peeking over that into that canyon of much more to learn. But we're just going to stay here for now and tell ourselves a story that we're good.
Yeah.
And
if I can throw in, it's this idea that we know a lot before we know anything.
That's right.
So it's like, what is it? Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance? That's missing ignorant and bliss. Ignorance is bliss. And so when we actually don't know, we're pretty confident because we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And then we get into things and actually realize and learn and get humbled around what we actually don't know about it, and our confidence goes down and we get a lot more curious and we learn. Probably a really great example is if, like, I have kids, and before I remember very specifically, my brother, I don't know if my brother listens to this, but if he does, hi. Before he had kids, I had kids, and I know I could watch the wheels turning his head of all the things that he was never going to do as a parent that I was doing, right? Because it's easy when you don't have children, you sit in this high place of being very confident because you're not the one doing it and you don't know. And now he has kids, and mine are raised and are, somewhat. And I'm laughing at all the stuff that he's doing that he was never going to do, right? Because you get humbled by the experience. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is just modeling that experience of You know a lot when you don't know much, and then you get humbled and learn how much you have to learn.
That's right. That's right. And so there's no quick fix. And things are complex. Life is messy. And this is one of the things that we teach all the time about leadership. And so we know that we sometimes have clients who are afraid to jump into that complexity because it's just going to, keep exposing more and more about the work to be done.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, we like to talk about is we get that. We understand that. There is more to learn about leadership, and it is absolutely important that you get started quickly on jumping into that complexity and keep introducing deeper and more learning for your leaders, because I think we've talked about this on podcasts before of that as your leaders go, so goes your company. Mm-hmm. The investment is absolutely essential, even though it might be scary that you're going to be opening up something that is far too complex for you to consider where does it end today.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, I don't know how much we give advice on this podcast, but the way we practice leadership and change management together, like this approach, our methods, we understand how to get started quickly. You don't have to have everyone. We know how to build momentum. We can help you do that. And you think about where are 20 leaders in my organization that are influential, that are seen, that have, potential. If you invest in them, their circle strengthens and everyone around them. And so you don't have to have a comprehensive, all-inclusive 5-year leadership and development strategy to get started. In fact, our experience would say you shouldn't. Start small, start somewhere. And I think that's one of the reasons that holds people back from actually going after and not tackling the leadership development problem is they get it, they turn into this great big elephant that they can't move. No one's ever going to move the elephant. You have to start small. Yep. And I think the other thing that people get hung up on is, okay, I've done that. Let's say I did put the people through the training. Now what? Mm-hmm. And so when you blend here's our needs, here's our people, here's our strategy, we're going to get started, we're going to build, and then building the change management on the back end, what's the heartbeat, what's the reinforcement, what are the refresher classes, what are the labs, where are the talks, then you can take what you've planted and continue to watch it grow.
That's right.
And that has to be, when we do work with teams and they hire us, we call it our leadership movement, right? Starting to shift your culture. We know how to work with you end to end on that so that you can get started, you get the snowball rolling, and you have confidence that it keeps rolling. It doesn't just turn into a flash in the pan one day event.
That's right. So, moral of the story, we can help you push that elephant up the other side.
Up the snow hill? How many metaphors can we cross here? We're going to push a snowman elephant up a snow hill.
We can help with all of that. So that's all for this episode of our Shotcast, but we always have much more to say, particularly around this subject. So if you want more, drop us a line at slingshot25.com. Until next time.